And joining me now is Joel Rubin, president of the Washington Strategy Group and a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Joel, thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you, Derek.
Secretary of State Pompeo's trip to the Middle East to push back on Iran comes as Iran has stepped up its rhetoric against the U.S., right?
Well, Iran's rhetoric is rising, and America's rhetoric has been rising towards Iran as well. And this latest development only highlights that the administration has failed to push back against Iran in Syria. And in fact, we're seeing Iraq engaging more closely now with Iran in Syria, Iran joining with Turkey against Kurdish forces the other day in Syria in a violent attack. So right now, rhetoric is just rhetoric, and the policy is failing to achieve the results that the rhetoric is calling for.
Well, let's talk about policy. In Syria, an Iranian general demanded U.S. troops leave the country and threatened U.S.-backed Kurdish forces if they don't. And there were reports later disputed by the Pentagon, though, saying the U.S. is now considering 1,000 U.S. troops there. So, I mean, what do you make of these differing levels of troops?
We're really in free fall right now in terms of our policy, and this essentially was kicked off back several months ago when President Trump agreed on the phone with Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey, President Erdogan, to withdraw American troops from Syria, and then Secretary of Defense Mattis quit in protest, and then days after, not so long after, the president said he would keep some troops in. So the president doesn't know which way he wants to go, and that means that the parties on the ground are going to cut their own deals. They're essentially exiting out America from their plans because they don't know which way we're going to turn. And that enables their policies to go forward and ours to essentially disappear. And unfortunately, this is what we call an own goal in foreign policy.
Joel, as you know, the U.S.-backed Syrian Defense Force, or SDF, is the force putting up the final fight against ISIS, and now they're being threatened by the Syrian government?
Yeah, it's very ironic and very sad. The SDF is concluding a fight that we have been backing them in for a number of years. The fight against ISIS was really the core rationale for the United States getting heavily engaged in Iraq and then pushing into Syria. It would be sad and devastating if after they defeat ISIS, they then get attacked by the Syrian government itself. And I'm not sure if we have a plan to get them out or what we'll do to protect them, but I can be certain, and we can all be very expectant that the Congress is not going to authorize a continued American presence there. So they will be at further risk after this fight.
Joel Rubin, thanks for joining us here on Take 30.